Welcome back, guys. We have another episode of the podcast today, and I've been chasing Scott Leese down for about, I would say, a good 8 to 9 months, and finally got you back on the second attempt. I want to know who you are, what do you do, and why do you do it? We'll jump right into
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate your persistence. I'm Scott Leese. I have been building and scaling sales teams for about 20 years now. I was a head of sales a half dozen times, kind of specialized in taking companies from 0 to 25 million in ARR or so, 100 million valuations, and then started a sales conference, micro sales conference called Surf and Sales, the Surf and Sales Summit, and wrote a couple books on sales, including Addicted to the Process and More Than a Number. I used to run the world's largest virtual online sales happy hour called Thursday Night Sales. We ran that for a few years. Run some other communities I've been a part of, and I've been running my own consulting firm for the last 4+ years now, primarily working with sort of Series A to Series B kind of startups from all over the world, and helping them figure out how to go to market, how to scale, get their messaging right, and all that kind of
So
good stuff.
everybody and their mother is doing going to market, getting their messaging right, ICP building, mapping accounts, activating markets, which is now a new thing. Why did you get into all of this?
Well, number one, I'd done all this stuff before.
Before all that, let's just say
And
before all that. So for me, I'll give you an example.
yeah,
Before all
before all
that,
that.
I'll give you a quick example on my side, right? So in 99, I was born and raised in the UK. In 99, my dad, he was working at Goldman Sachs. They relocated us to Franklin Lakes, New Jersey. That was an adventure playground for us, okay? We were in New York City, at the Millennium Hotel. We had everything. And they said, sit here for 2 years. If you like it, we'll extend it. And being in America, the first thing was Jenko jeans, but everybody was so much bigger than me. I'm the little Indian kid in 7th grade. I saw the buses for the first time. And seeing how different American culture is and how robust and outlandish people are, that helped me really see what my personality could become. I was actually able to be me in America. And after 15 years of going up through high school, college, and everything, I landed myself a 3-year prison sentence. I started to get addicted to opiates. I got where it was in rehabs, and through all of these experiences, I met so many different personalities, and I was able to not manipulate, but behave in a way that I could get the things I wanted through all those times. Even in prison, the one thing that I was able to do was manipulate correctional officers to get out my time in the cell, right? Get my free time. And when I came here, I was able to use my personality, everything I built from America, and completely shine in sales here. That's why I got into it, because it basically unleashed it cracked open that shell. So for you, was there only a moment in high school, college, that you knew that, okay, I want to do something different? It's not like what everybody else wants.
I would say that there wasn't one moment, but it was a series of moments, similar in some ways to you. I had a difficult kind of early
Mm-hmm.
part of my 20s,
Mm-hmm.
let's say. I had finished grad school and ended up getting really sick and ended up in the hospital for the better part of 4 years, fighting for my life. I had a lot of struggles and life-threatening autoimmune disease and colon cancer scare, and I had my large intestine removed. I had 9 major abdominal surgeries. So, throughout that process, I had no idea what I was going to do with myself if and when I ever, got
Mm-hmm.
healthy again. And, I knew I needed to like make up for
Mm-hmm.
lost time, and I was behind everybody. And, I can't sit here for fucking 5 years and wait to maybe get a raise and get promoted and all that. So I had a friend who was in sales, and he basically told me, like, you should give it a shot. The better you do, the more you get paid. You can go to early stage startups maybe and move up faster and whatnot. And so that's what I did, man. It wasn't like I was a student of sales, or, you know, my dad was a teacher, my mom was a nurse. It's like I didn't grow up with
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurial kind of influences or anything like that, right? It was just born out of, I have no idea what to do with myself now after this
Mm.
harrowing experience. So let me give it a shot, and it took me a little bit to kind of get the hang of it. But once I got the hang of it, that light bulb went off, and kind of been running with
What was
that
that
ever
first
since, I
job?
guess. I was selling online lead generation uh, tools and services to real estate agents and automotive
Jason,
dealers.
my first sale
Yeah.
was, did you ever hear of Vector Marketing Cutco knives?
Oh yeah, of course. Sure, sure,
That's what
sure,
I was selling. I
sure.
was
Yeah.
dynamite at Cutco sell knives. But after 3 months of hitting every target, Dennis Jankowski calls me into the office and says, "Hey, dude, what's this?" I said, "What do you mean, what's this?" He goes, "You didn't check this box. You have a criminal record." And I was like, "Oh, look, every job has fired me, so I didn't tell you. I didn't tell you what I had the record, all right? But hopefully my performance speaks for itself." He's like, "Look, really like you, but we're gonna have to give you the axe, bro. We can't keep you here." And that really, really killed me. Really, really killed me because I worked as a pizza delivery driver, and in America, you can go deliver 10 boxes of pizza, and you can get $100 tip. You can walk away with 400, $500 at the end of a shift. And I wanted more money, and then I got into his name's Dean Grazioso. I don't know if you know who Dean Grazioso is. He's a real estate tycoon, and this was about 20 years ago. And he got me into the education part of like the stock market, Series 7, Series 63. And that's what I ended up wanting to do as the next phase. Went into a capital markets firm, saw all the brokers, SL 550s. Everybody had nice cars, and I knew I wanted to be something like that. And I saw him getting on the phone, and I screwed up that experience because I met a silly girl and decided to go on the wrong path. But when I came back to the UK, I worked as a security guard for 15 hours a day, 2 hour commute to and from work, was almost ready to relapse, and asked my boss for a raise. And he said, "I'll give you a 25p raise." So I was like, all right. I went and applied for a sales job, watched a couple of movies, Boiler Room, everything, Wolf of Wall Street, and I got on the phone to a Polish enterprise company. And when I pitched this guy, the whole room froze. And that's when I discovered like I had a spark about me with cold calling. Ever since then, I took off. I was always confident on the phone, and I was able to achieve like some pretty interesting things. When did you discover your spark? I know you said it was an accumulation of a series of events, but the first job you're in, online lead generation, did you hit it at that job, or was it an iteration of experiences over the years?
No, I hit it at that job, actually. Yeah. There's a fun fact about me. I was actually only an account executive for about 7 months. That's it. And with 7 months of experience, I had been the number one sales rep in the company. I had broken all the records. And then I got put into a sales management
Okay, tell
position.
me more.
And then I basically replicated what was working for me with, I think I had about 15, 16 reps under me, which is a boatload, way
Mhm.
more than anybody should have. And, before I knew it, I had the number one team in the company. And then, got promoted to senior sales manager. And then got it, reps in Arizona as well as San Francisco. And I've got two offices, and I'm kind of teaching other managers and other reps. And, you know, so it came to me relatively quick, man. It took me a few days to figure out how to sell this particular product, figured out how to sell it. Then I figured out how to replicate it. And I really kind of aggressively went to the founder of the company and was like, how do I move up in this company? I don't really fancy myself like a frontline worker for very long. It doesn't show it on my resume, but like, this is the type of person I am based on, I was an athlete my whole life. I was captain of two different teams in college. playing D2 sports. I had a psychology degree, a religious studies background. I had a master's degree by the time I was 22 years old. Like, I'm not a peon,
Yeah.
is what I was thinking, And luckily I did well, and I was in a place that gave me the opportunity to kind of, move up quick. And I ceilinged out at that first company after about 2.5 years. And then I said, adios, man, because somebody offered me a VP of sales gig, and I left. And, that was kind of what I did over and over. I'd go somewhere for 3 years. I'd build it from, 0 to 100, so to speak. And then, kind of adios, let me go build it and do it again. I kept going back
Mm-hmm.
into the beginning, which is a stage that I really love. So yeah, got lucky, kind of hit it on the first gig, and
What do you?
took off
So
from there.
that's look. I think you're a bit of an anomaly because not everybody can hit the ground running like that. And
Yeah, I
the
am.
education piece. So where were you getting your education before you went into that job on how to be relationship driven, how to have those conversations, how to be professional?
Nowhere, nowhere, absolutely nowhere. There was no podcast back then. This
Yeah,
right. So this is
I was just
2004.
graduating.
Yeah, I don't even think there was
No.
audio books back then, really. And I wasn't reading sales books, leadership books, and I wasn't digesting information and content. I would not consider myself at that point in time a student of the game. I was learning by
Mhm.
doing.
Yep.
And what I was doing was massive action and outworking everybody in
Yep.
my worldview. You know, this is not an exaggeration. And, nowadays, if you talk about this, you get yourself canceled real quick. But, I took the train at 5 a.m. and I was in the office at
Mhm.
6 a.m. and I wouldn't take the train home until 6:30 or 7 p.m. And I'd get home and I'd, chill out for a little bit. And while I was watching the game on TV or whatever, I was fucking firing off emails and prospecting until 9, 10 o'clock at night. And then I'd go to bed. And then on the weekend, I found a couple colleagues who agreed with me to put in some extra work. And we'd go to the office like 9:30, 10 a.m. to 1 or 2 p.m. every Saturday. And then we'd go reward ourselves and go have a surf in the ocean and kind of shake off the stress and whatnot. So I learned by working an incredible amount of hours and putting in the time. And it was only later on, once I moved into, kind of sales leadership roles and more strategic building out companies, that I actually started reading books on sales and reading books on, leadership and coaching and stuff like that.
And out of all of
Right.
those, what do you think was the most helpful in your transition from the first job you were at, and then obviously you go to a VP of sales position, which is a massive jump. How big of a difference in company size was that jump from online lead generation to the second one?
But I went smaller
Okay, why?
because that's where the
Tell me
opportunity
more.
is. Because you see, if you have 2.5 years of total fucking
Mm-hmm.
business experience, let alone sales management experience, let alone sales experience, what am I going to do? Walk into Salesforce or IBM and be like, "Hey, put me in this VP role." You get laughed out of the building,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you go to a very early stage company, two guys in a garage with a product that they don't know how to sell, but they've raised a little bit of money, right? They'll give you that opportunity. And now all the pressure is on you. Now it's on me. I got to keep the lights on, right? If I fail at this thing, I might go way backwards. But if I succeed, I look pretty good. And I don't ever have to go backwards again. And I wanted all of that pressure. I wanted all of the reward and all of the, punishment if it didn't work. I preferred that rather than being a
Of
cog in
course.
the machine. So, the first company that I left, by the time I left it, we probably had a couple hundred employees. The company that I went to had about 10. And then I built that company up to a couple hundred employees. And then I left for a company that had about 15. And I just kept doing that over and over, man. I'm telling you, that was the key. I always went very early stage, build something from scratch, all the pressure, all the reward on me.
I like that. I like that, and I think that's what drove me when the pandemic hit. I was in a comfortable job. I was working in oil and gas, demand gen sales, selling to service companies that were trying to get into EPCs. And when March hit and they said everybody go home, it was just like God's giving you an opportunity to go home and rethink your life, and He's paying you to do it. So they even said to people in the UK, they said, if you don't pay your rent, you're like, we have a plan for you. Like, you can stop your rent for 3 months. So I said, okay, fine. I'm not paying my rent for 3 months.
Yeah.
I'm starting a business. Give my commission check. And I went off to the races. And for 3 years, we hit. So first year we hit £171,000 service-based outbound business, like absolute telemarketing garbage. We were not good. Delivery was not great, but we learned, right? Year two, we grew by 444%, right? It was exactly that. We shot up to 411,000. And then the third year, we pretty much sank. And that was because I got tired of managing people. When things are good, things are good. But when things are bad, people will turn on you very, very quick. What was the biggest challenge that you came up against at the second startup? You go in, you build, and then you hit that first roadblock. What was that like?
Well, the roadblock was actually the founder and sort of learning more about the reality of venture capital and startups and expectation.
All right.
My dogs are going
Fine.
nuts, so you'll have to forgive me. And that was the roadblock. It's like I had taken us from literally no revenue to about 18 million in revenue in 18 months. We were growing almost $1 million a month. It was like meteoric, right? And the founder had bootstrapped the company. He hadn't raised any money. But what happened was I felt like I'm about to break. I can't, there's no more hours in my day that I can possibly spend. I don't have any tools. I don't have any systems. I don't have any help. And so I sort of said, like, hey, man, I think we should go raise some money so we can grow and scale, properly. Right. And I also didn't have any equity in this company.
Okay.
The founder kept, all the equity. It was all private. And so the founder disagreed with me and was like, no, I don't want to deal with venture capital folks. I'm doing just fine. And I'm like, well, you're pocketing all the fucking royalties here, bro.
Fair.
And yeah, I'm making like, an OTE that's okay and whatever, but like there's no long-term vested interest for me to stay. Like, what's the point? Right. And so that's the blocker. That's what killed it. And I ended up walking away because I'm like, well, I've done what I came here to do, and then I moved on. So that was a real kind of peek under the hood, the naivete of business and startups and venture capital and how the game is rigged for people who already have, and it's set against the have-nots, and all of that stuff like hit me like a ton of bricks. Right. And so I learned a lot from that in terms of what not to do, what to look for now, as I move forward. So, it's kind of a difficult experience to go through, but I did learn a lot from it, and it helped me later on.
Would you say that was the lowest point you've been at in your career?
No, it would actually be the one after that. Because what happened after that was I went to a third company that I would have been the VP of sales at. Right. And at that point in time, I read my own headlines, let's just say. I thought basically that I could do anything. I could, any product you give it to me, I can figure out how to sell it. I can figure out how to build it, grow it, scale it. I could turn water into wine. Right. And so all I was looking for was like, who's going to pay me the most money? Who's going to give me the most equity? And I did a terrible job of vetting the founder. I did a terrible job of vetting the product. I did a terrible job of vetting the other executives I'd be working with and
Mm-hmm.
all of this kind of stuff. And I did it for the paycheck. And then once I got there, I realized like, oh my God, I'm not on the same page with these people whatsoever. They don't know what they want to do. They don't know what they want to build. They don't know that deal about deals I'm bringing to the table. They don't even know if they want to take the people's money because they don't know if they can fulfill on the product side. And it was just a shit show, absolute shit show. Right. And I only lasted there 7 months or so. That's the one blip on my resume. So that would be the low point, right? It's like I started off late, 27 years old, got real good real quick,
Mm-hmm.
had a good ride, had a great ride at this other place that kind of came to a bit of a
Mm-hmm.
abrupt halt, let's just say. And then that third gig, I fucked up. And that's on me. Like I could blame them, they suck at this, they suck at that, and they do. But the reality is that's on me because I didn't do a good job of vetting
I'm with you.
anything. And I believe my own headlines, right? But at that point in time now, I had 3 interesting experiences and I didn't make mistakes the next 3 times because the next 2 times both were 9-figure exits. And the last time is $1 billion plus
Gee.
unicorn. So those 3 experiences that, got me started helped me get to experience 4, 5, and 6 where I
Well, I
knocked it
think
out of
that's
the
what
park.
one of the most important things of why I'm doing this is there's when I was younger, I was always afraid to answer the question in class, like always afraid to raise my hand and give the answer. And then when somebody else would give it, I'd be like, fuck, I knew I should have fucking answered that. I knew I was right. And people don't value the importance of failure these days, I don't think, as much as they should. So I had a similar experience last year. I met a private equity investor. He just exited an airline company for 135 million. And I saw dollar signs. He said, I've just invested in 10 companies. So I said, all right, cool. I'm going to land this gig. I'm going to deliver for this guy. He's going to give me the 10 companies. Went to Denmark and met this guy. And he said, the first thing he said is, I want to build a data warehouse and figure out who my customer is. But everybody in Europe is my customer. We're getting all the data. And I was like, bro, are you fucking for real? Like, you're seriously gonna, what about people who are using this type of software before? And he flipped out on me in the boardroom with like all these other guys. And I said, look, fuck this. I'm here. All right, fine. You want to fucking go and start having an argument in front of everybody? We can do this. How the fuck are you going to do this? 2 months later, he fired me, right? He said he didn't want to work with me. And then the CEO of that company got screwed over by him too. And now we're actually working together. So it's quite interesting how it happened. But in this phase, I'm doing the same thing. I'm part of a company now. They're building AI autonomous agents. I've got equity in the company. I've got shares. I've got bonus structure, and it's really exciting to be building something from the ground up. And I think that's what a lot of my failures have built the resilience I have today, which is why I think I'm so confident and strong. In your case, what was it that helped you become so resilient, even through those learnings, maybe the third gig? But then there's obviously compounded experiences after that. How did you build your resilience up so strong?
Because nothing that I was going to go through or will go through will ever be harder than what I'd already defeated. So it's just perspective. You think I care
Of
about
course.
missing quota,
No.
coming where I've been? When you've been sick and unable to leave the hospital, let alone work or do anything else, like you reach this perspective where it's like, oh, if I don't make my number, you're going to fire me. Oh well, I'll find another job. How hard can that be? And you start to lose kind of some inhibition, and you realize like doubting myself is not serving me
Mm-hmm.
at all. Worrying about stuff outside of my control isn't helping me at all. And so that makes You appreciate every opportunity that's put in front of you. It makes you not want to squander or waste any time, right? So you move through the world with a different sense of urgency than some people. And you don't really worry about little setbacks too much, right? It doesn't mean that I don't get frustrated. It doesn't mean that I don't grieve. It doesn't mean that I don't stress. I move through those emotions, I think, way faster than other people do, right? So I don't dwell on a problem for very long. Maybe I give it like 24 hours and I really try hard to just like move through, right? And if I go back farther than that, I spent my whole youth, playing soccer and playing tennis. Okay. Other than golf, I don't think there's a more frustrating sport on the planet than tennis.
Why do you say that?
Well, anybody who's ever played will know.
I was never good.
But you can hit the same shot in a row 1,000 times, and then all of a sudden, when it matters, you shank one. You've practiced your serve 1,000,000 times and you double fault and you get broke. And it's like you can't worry about that too much, because what happens if you do is it spirals out of control and you don't get your confidence back. And losing 1 point becomes losing a game, and losing a game quickly becomes losing a set. And you lost a set, now you lost 2, and now you lost the match. So you have to develop like a very short memory. You have to learn to let things go quickly. Let a mistake go. You fucked up. Oh well, move on, right? And I think so some of that was born from spending my youth playing athletics, and then it got really like crystallized through my health struggles. So a setback is just not that big a deal in the grand
Of
scheme of
course.
things, man.
I've had a heroin addiction. I've had an opiate addiction. I've been to prison. I've been to rehabs, jails, and then thrown out of the country. Like people get thrown out of school. I got thrown.
Right. So it's like you've been through all those things. Any one of those things on their own is harder than stuff that a lot of people
Of
will ever
course.
go through in their life. So you now have the ability to develop this perspective, which is like, if I start this business and it fails,
Exactly.
oh well, what difference does it make? I'll find a job doing something else. It's
Exactly.
okay. It's okay. Well, a lot of people don't have that perspective yet, and unfortunately, sometimes it takes people going through hell in order to get
Or
that
you could just read
perspective.
Stephen Covey's book, Seven Habits. Have 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Maybe it was that
Sir,
simple to just
circle.
read
When
something
I
and then.
read that, I read that book. And so, funny story, right? This is on resilience too. In 2017-18, I was engaged to this Indian chick, and it was because our families knew each other. It was the perfect kind of, you're with a good girl, just go for it. I didn't even like her that much. Ended up getting really, really annoying. She said, "You're the person with the problem. I want you to go see somebody." So I said, "Okay, cool. Who do you want me to go see?" She said, "Go see a life coach." Gave me this life coach. 6 months later, the life coach says, "Ditch this chick." Go and read this book.
That's
She
pretty
goes, "All
funny.
these feelings you have, they're just emotions. What happens to clouds? Clouds, they go away. Same thing like emotions. What about values? What things can you control? These things, these things, things. Okay, so why do you care? You know what the circle of concern is and circle of influence? Work on that kind of vibration." And for 3 years, I developed something very, very interesting from that. And again, it helped me realize like none of this shit is really that big. And it might have been the reason I fucked up my marriage, because I married for the reason I was just like, she's hot. She's from an Arabic country. She looks like Kim Kardashian. If it works, great. If not, it don't fuck it. Who cares? And little did I know, I got smacked in the face like big time. But one thing that helped me capture like everything together was a community of good people. So I've been part of like Justin Michael's WhatsApp groups and others, and I've seen. I don't know how you feel, but as a senior leader yourself, somebody who I look up to too, I don't know if you've seen how saturated and diluted some of these groups have gotten or become, with just bozos giving advice on how to run multi-million dollar companies that have never done anything in their life. I find that baffling, but then there are now paid communities that I am joining and spending on, and I think they're quite valuable. What's your opinion on community based marketing as something of the future and how valuable it is in growing your business today?
I think you have to be a participant one way or the other. You have to. You have to work on growing an online network of friends, support system, colleagues, current, future business partners, prospects, you name it. I think it's essential. And I think it's going to be very hard to sell in the future without that type of network. The challenge becomes, like you said, how does one determine what's good from what's bad, what's valuable from what's trash, who's real versus a shuckster? So you got to look at receipts. What have these people
Yep.
done, right? If I tallied it up the other day and wrote about it the other day on LinkedIn too, but I've now been a part of 11 exits, and 12 unicorns still exist that I have worked at or for in some capacity. That's 23 companies that have had what I would consider to be massive success out of, I haven't tallied up the total number, but it's around 100 to 130 or so, something like that. So, you're talking about like a 17 to 25% hit rate, where most people don't have one exit ever.
I need to have one of those under my belt.
So when you think about, like, should I pay attention to this person? Should I join this person's community even if it's free? Should I join this person's community if it's paid? Should I go to this event free or paid? Spending time and money and energy to try to, soak up information. You got to look at the receipts. Like, who are you actually learning from?
Exactly.
I'm old enough and been around long enough that the odds are that most of the people in your age group or a decade younger, I am your mentor's mentor. You asked Justin Michael what he thinks about me. He will tell
Why do you
you.
think I chased you
I
down?
interviewed him for a sales job. I interviewed him for a sales job in 2010 or
Wow.
11, something like that. There's guys like Ian Cognac. Ian will tell you, like, he left me a voice note yesterday thanking me for, like, helping him and encouraging him to start his own business and not to do these kinds of things. These are some of the guys who are, like, coaching and running these kind of businesses. I'm old enough and been around long enough to be their mentor. So those people have receipts, and they've got people like me in their circle as well. But if you think of some of these other people who are out there, they've got 6 months of experience and they're running a paid community. It's like, bro, what are we talking about here, right? Or, I see other people. A long time ago, I changed my LinkedIn headline to say 6-time sales leader. I see people that now 5-time sales leader,
Crazy.
kind of mirroring that. And I look at it and they're like, they were at these places for less than a year every single time. You're at these places for less than a year, like, that's a failure. Remember what I said earlier about my third gig and I was there 7 months, and that's a fat fucking L?
Yeah.
That's a loss for me. That's a big mistake, right? I'm not touting that as, like, some big win, but some of these people are. They're trying to use
Of
that as,
course.
like, credibility, you know? So you got to be real. You got to dig in. It's just going to get more and more crowded because every joker with a microphone now has the ability to announce themselves as, the authority.
That's what. Well, look, it is exactly why I try to get important, respectful professional people who've achieved shit. Like bringing people onto this thing and saying I'm speaking to CEOs or founders of companies that have exited for 7, 8, 9, 10 figures, and I interview a bozo. I did it once. I said, bro, I cannot put you on this fucking podcast. I will not put you on my page. I said, what have you done? And he said, nothing. I'm just starting. I said, bro, what the fuck are you doing? I was like, you can't do this. I said, tell me in about 2 years. I'm not no special person myself. I let all my shit out. But again, it's about the learning, the honesty, the transparency. And I think that's what makes the difference between people who are trying to come up and learn versus those people who are like, yeah, I can, I build 400 trillion in fucking pipeline every year, right? Some of these
Yeah.
jokers. So,
Yeah. And another thing you could think about is how long was somebody in the trenches before they went off and tried to do this stuff on their own? I spent the better part of 2 decades building and scaling sales orgs, coaching salespeople and sales managers. I waited a very long time before I went off on my own, you know. But by the time I went off on my own, I had a massive network. I had a pretty darn good track record. And that made going off on my own a lot easier. I had business coming to me rather than me chasing it. I could charge prices that were, 2, 3x what
mhm.
others could charge. Right. And so it makes growing your own business a lot easier, but you have to be willing to put in a lot of work, and make some mistakes a few times. And like you said a couple times during this show, people are afraid of
They
that
are,
kind
they're
of thing a
pussies.
little
This
bit.
this day and age is just it's different. It's bro, it's fucking crazy. Like shit is hard
Built different.
nowadays. And if you want to be one of these like a great one, oh AI is gonna take my job. I'm like, mate, if it's gonna take your job, the job probably sucks. Like you should be happy that that job is gonna go right. All these things are quite important. So as we wrap this up, two things that I want to focus on: the roadmap to success usually includes one consistent behavior that you would recommend most people do every day to be successful. Mine is always execution. What's the consistent behavior? One consistent behavior you recommend people leverage, use every day to become successful in their own domain, whatever it may be.
Yeah, it's a great question. One consistent behavior. I'll say it for 2024. And I think that is treat network growth like a KPI that you have to hit every single day. Back in the day, you and I, we probably had to make 100, 200 calls a day or whatever. And we were measured on that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or people were measured on talk time or
Yep.
whatever they were measured on. For me, network growth as a KPI is absolutely critical right now. How many people am I adding to my network, my community every single day? Because everybody that I pull into that network can become somebody who can help me, somebody that I might be able to help, somebody that might hire me one day, somebody that I might hire one day, somebody that I can learn from, somebody that I can partner with on something. You just never know, right? And as we move through this world and we're more and more arguably isolated
Yep.
face to face, whether it's pandemic or heads buried in phones or whatever, your network is less and less offline and in person and more online and virtual. And you're going to have a very difficult time moving forward if you don't have this online network and you're trying to build a business, sell something, that kind of thing. So that's what I would tell people to work on right now is literally put in time growing your network and tracking that growth every single day.
All right. Now, are you talking about, just to be very clear on that, are you talking about a LinkedIn network, your Instagram network, socials as a whole, one to one?
All, all of the above. All of the above. Doesn't matter to me like what platform or what channel you're talking about, right? It could be you're a part of a community that has thousands of people in it, but you're making a pointed effort to actually
Mm,
connect with a half dozen people from that community every single day. Quick chats or, hey, Shane, know you run a podcast. I run a podcast. I was listening to one of your episodes. I
of
noticed
course.
XYZ. I fixed this little production thing in my own podcast too. You might want to try it out. Anyways, let me know if I can ever be helpful to you. That's a little quick note, man, that somebody will read and be like, shit, this guy didn't want nothing. He's
That's
just trying to
exactly
help
the
me,
way.
And then that karma maybe comes back a little bit. So it could be that. It could just be, sending out 15 connections a day on LinkedIn. It could be following certain people that you admire on Instagram or Twitter or TikTok or whatever. You're like, hey, I really like, Scott's background in sales and Justin's and whatnot. Like, I'm going to follow him over here. And when he posts content, I'm going to engage with it because I want him to know who I am, because maybe we can go from not knowing each other to being familiar to actually being,
Of course.
friendly with each other and maybe partnering on something. Not doing that stuff is, dereliction of duty at this point in 2024.
I agree.
To me.
So last question. Most people will ask, what would you tell yourself 10 years ago if you're a kid? I'm just like, all right, that's it. It's very boring now. So it's 6:25 over by my side. You're in the West Coast. Are you in California or?
I actually live in Austin,
so you're 6
Texas
hours
now.
behind, I think. So it's 12 o'clock for you, right?
Yep.
All right. So 12:21, the 22nd of February, 2034. You're speaking to me today. What are you doing at this exact time in 10 years?
Well, first, 10 years from now, I'm speaking to you again. That's what you're
No,
asking?
well, if you want to be, hey, I'm down, bro.
Check in 10 years. I mean, 10 years from now, I hope to be spending my time in about 3 or 4 different places a year, kind of couple months here, couple months there, and just kind of on rotation a little bit. And hopefully I've successfully diversified myself to the point where I'm not having to work as hard as I am right now. I'm able to spend more time at the beach, more time surfing, more time relaxing. And I've got some solid passive income streams and whatnot. And, hopefully I'll be a little closer to being retired than I am right now.
And the last question, sorry, I want to get this one from you. Your dream
That's 3
surf
last
location.
questions.
Dream surf location. I'm going to Portugal next month, so I saw you.
Oh,
dream
man.
surf location, biggest waves. Which is it? Where are you going to be? Where are you going to go?
I don't get to surf enough to handle waves of any size anymore, and my body's a little too beat up, so the big wave stuff is not appealing to me anymore. Dream surf location. I've never made my way to, Bali or Indonesia or Australia, New Zealand. I've never been to that part of the world. So at some point, somewhere in that area, is a spot
awesome.
that I'm going
well,
to have
look,
to get
thank
to.
you very much, Scott, for joining. It was an absolute pleasure meeting you. And for anybody that does want to connect with you, where should they go? Where's the best place to get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can check out my website to learn a little bit more about all the different things that I do. It's just scottleaseconsulting.com. And if you want to follow me and connect with me on social and on LinkedIn, that's the easiest place probably to find me. And shoot me a note. Let me know what you thought of our episode today, and I'll be sure to
It's going to be a 20 out of
respond
10,
to you.
bro. What do you think? We do this on a regular.
I mean, it's fine with me. I hope so. I hope
Like, share, subscribe if you like this, guys. Thank you again, Scott. Just wait on for 1 minute while it pops up.